welcome back to Cookie Crumb Fun. Today I wanted to share with you how I go about making my kefir milk. I usually have two jars. One right there is the doubled, which is the double ferment, and this is the jar of the grains. I usually put the date that I put them in the jar and the time that I put them in the jar so I know when to switch them out the next day. Sometimes I forget and wait a couple hours afterwards or a day or two, and it gets really thick and separates a little bit, so you shake it up and then it's all good to go. So I get a strainer out and I pour the grains, the kefir grains, into a strainer. Now each time you do this, you want to get a clean jar, rinse out the one you have, or get a brand new clean jar to start your kefir grains with, to put them, to put the kefir in for the double ferment. You want a clean jar and a clean lid. You want a clean container. Everything just got to be fresh and clean. So I usually use this rubber spatulas that swishes it around because it's really thick. This one it looks like I may have waited an extra day or a couple hours too long to switch it out, which is perfectly fine. Sometimes I've gone a couple days and it's still good. I'll get less milk because the grains will grow more that way, but I'll still get a good amount of milk. I usually get about 2 cups, even if I do a full quart jar. So I swish it around, I just move it around, and it gets the milk all separated from the grains. And as you can see now, the grains are showing up, and it basically looks like cottage cheese. It's a very, it's a harder, it's not hard like a rock. It's still soft like cottage cheese, but because it looks like it. But to the touch, it's a little firmer than cottage cheese is. Cottage cheese, you could like squish it. So what I'm going to do is separate it all up like that. And right now, my family just got back from the dog park with the dog. That's why I stopped and was talking with them about that. And the dog loves going to the dog park and playing with the other dogs. So I was just checking in with everybody right there. But what I'm going to do next is make sure I have all of the milk separated from my grains. And then you're going to want to get out 2 clean jars because you're going to want to have one for your grains and one for the milk that you just separated, the new kefir. Now, to start this from scratch, from the beginning, you're only going to need about 1/4 of a cup of grains for a 2-quart kefir jar. I have over 1/2 a cup here. My grains, I don't know if it's my kitchen, the milk I use, the temperature in my kitchen, my grains grow so fast. And I know I don't like throwing them out, but sometimes I have so much that I throw it out because I don't want to have more than about 1/2 a cup at a time, because then I have more grains than I have milk and I don't get as much kefir left. So I'm going to take about, 1/4, 1/3 of a cup of my grains, and I'm going to put them into a new quart jar. Now, when you start off, you don't have to have a 1/4 of a cup. You could just have a tablespoon or 2 and just use one of the pint jars, and just as it grows, you get it into a bigger jar. Now, eventually, depending on how much kefir you drink, you could use a 1/2 a cup to a cup of the grains and use it in one of those larger gallon, half-gallon jars. So it all depends on how much you want. So I'm going to put all my grains in here, and I usually scrape out the bottom. There's always a little excess left on the bottom of it there. And then I'm going to get some milk and I'm going to fill it up. And then I put the kefir that I was just made from here, and I'm going to put it in another jar. See, it fills it up just about halfway. And I usually fill the jar up all the way so that I can get a good 2.5, 3 cups of milk kefir when I am done. And I always make a mess too. Something always drips somewhere. But what I like to do is label my lids. I use the plastic lids, and it comes right off. I use a Sharpie, and when I wash them, it comes right off the lid. So what I do is I put the date, and I put the time that I put it in there, and on the kefir grains, I write grains on it so I don't get them mixed up, so I don't accidentally drink and mix up my grains. And then on the one that I'm doing a double ferment to, I usually just write double on it. And I have most days 4 or 5 jars of this kefir because I'm not drinking it every day. My husband and my one son that likes it is not drinking it every day. My kids like it. Depends on their mood whether they like it or not, and how strong the sourness is to this kefir. And so I'll put the later dates in the front, you know, and then the closer dates in the back, so that I tell my son to get the ones from the front of the fridge. And so I fill it up with the whole milk. I use 2% vitamin D whole milk. I get it from Winco or from Walmart. I do not use organic milk. I do not use any special milk. I know that you could probably do it using a milk substitute like almond, cashew, whatever, but I've never tried it, so I have no idea if you need special grains or not. I'm not the one to ask because I don't know, since I've never done it. So that's all there is to it. And so you're going to let your grains sit for 24 hours, depending on the temperature. Sometimes if it's really warm, you only need to let it sit for maybe, 12 to 20. And then you do the same thing all over again, and they grow. And within a week or two, I'm going to have more grains, and I'm going to have to separate it and get it back down to a quarter of a cup. And that's how simple way to make kefir milk, kefir grains, and double ferment. And those are the other things that I'm fermenting, my sourdough and some jalapenos. Kids chips, but that's it right there.
So that is how easy it is to take care of your kefir grains and double ferment your kefir. I got my grains from a friend. If you can find someone locally who has grains and either does the kefir, or you can even try to find a friend that does kombucha to get fermented foods that way. And also there's water kefir too, which I've never even tasted. I think it's bubbly like soda in a way. I don't know if that's something I should look into trying or not. I'm not sure. I kind of like failed miserably when we moved here with the kombucha, but I want to try it again after seeing Marissa do hers. You got to go back. I'll try to put link it below. She made it look so easy to make kombucha, and so does Katie. But I wanted to share with you how I did our milk kefir, and I use full fat milk. I've tried skim milk before and it literally is like water, so I decided to not make it non-fat. Show you, the kids are smiling at me, grinning, trying to get mom to mess up. But that's what I use. I use whole milk as I showed you, and then it sits for 24 hours, and then you put it in the fridge and use it accordingly. I make yuck yum bitties with mine. You could make any kefir smoothie recipe that you enjoy. But the kind that I have, I'm not exactly sure that it is a... Now I know that all the sugars are eaten out of it when you do the double ferment, but it still has fat in it. So I know somehow it's a fuel pull in a way. So I'm not the one to ask. Maybe some of you know how homemade kefir turns into a fuel pull and can be used in an E setting. I've not even tried it, and I've not looked into it. So I'd love for you to educate me on that to see if I can use my homemade kefir. Perhaps I need to have a conversation with Michelle. Michelle, are you watching? Let me know. So anyway, that's what I do, and I just wanted to share that with you. I am not the expert. If you have any questions, we can all chit chat down in the comments below, because I'm sure there are others who know more than me that might read the comments and can help you, but I will help you as best that I can. I've been doing this, how long have I been doing this? Maybe 2 years? I know I gave it last summer a break. I let it sit in the fridge. It was so hot that they grow really fast when it's warm. And I think that's why mine are doing so well. You need to let it sit for 24 hours and they grow. That's really what they'll do. I mean, they're not going to grow, double in size overnight, but it might take a week or two or a month for them to double or quadruple and stuff. But mine grow really fast because it's warm here, I believe. So I don't use organic milk. I just use regular vitamin D milk from Winco, as you saw. So, as I mentioned, if you have any questions, let me know. Let me know how you use your kefir. I'd be super curious how everyone uses it and what recipes. And I also know, Michelle at Encouraging Mamas taught me this, that you can use your kefir instead of water to make a sourdough starter. And that makes your sourdough in 24 hours rather than waiting a week for it to get all sourdoughy, all fermented. So that's what I did. And every once in a while, instead of water, I use a runnier version. Like sometimes I might forget to do the kefir and I change it out, and so I don't get as much milk from it and the thickness of it, so it gets more runny. And that's when I will use that. It just, you know, you only need like a couple tablespoons in your sourdough, and it just revives it, makes it more, you know, I guess fermented, sour, whatever. There was one thing I was gonna say. I don't remember. I think you can also use whey, like from yogurt and stuff like that, for your kefir to get, or your sourdough. I'm not sure. Is that right? I think that is. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. If you have any questions, go down below and we will do our best together to answer and help you out. Thanks for watching. Be a blessing.